Hey everyone, this is Susie Roos from Self Care Essentials and Evicting Cancer, and your host of Wholehearted Aging. Today, I want to ask you a few questions like, how do you feel about your aging journey? Are you buying into the subtle and not so subtle narratives stemming from a culture that literally worships youthfulness and sometimes harshly judges or fears aging? Speaking of fear, are you fearful that your vitality, your looks, your cognitive functioning, your independence, whatever, will diminish due to physical breakdowns in your body, like diminish in a way that compromises your life? Do your family longevity genes, or possibly seeming lack thereof, concern you? These types of thoughts, whether bubbling on a front burner in your mind or simmering on a back burner, they induce all types of the negative impacts of chronic stress. But even more than that is the power of your perceptions about life in general and aging specifically to dramatically impact how you and your body experience aging. Now, because I like to back what I say with evidence, once a nurse, always a nurse, I want to share just a few minutes of a presentation I did on graceful aging this past year. So give me a minute to share my screen, and hopefully you'll be reminded once again of the power that you possess to create the outcomes you want in your life. Okay, so here we go. You guys hopefully know this already from me. Graceful aging is a holistic concept. We know it's more than skin deep, although I promise you some great tips to work on the skin. It's more than exercising. We need our exercise though. And it's more than the foods that you eat. It starts with your attitude and perceptions about aging. So, once again, what are yours? Are they serving you or hindering you? Here's a study that took place a few years ago. And the results of this longevity study on aging and retirement showed that people with positive perceptions about aging live on average 7.5 years longer than those who do not have that same perception. But more than just years, because years without quality don't mean a whole lot, the perceptions of aging had more of an effect on healthy longevity than did having low cholesterol, low blood pressure, or a low body mass index. Not that we don't want to work with those things, but look at the power of perception. Here's a study that involves nuns. What I've noticed is when scientists are doing like lifelong studies on a population, they often use nuns, nurses, war veterans, and sometimes medical students because they know where to find them over the course of their lives. But anyway, this study was specifically about nuns, and it started when a group of nuns were just entering the monasteries in their 20s. And one of the criteria that they measured was their overall enthusiasm for life. And that's what they focused on in this study. And what they found was years later, because remember, they followed them their whole lives, and now they're elder nuns, and some of them are starting to pass away. So what they found, as you can see here, were the nuns that entered with having a high enthusiasm for life. Only 10% of those nuns developed Alzheimer's disease, while the nuns that had perhaps less enthusiasm for life, 80% of that population developed Alzheimer's. That's really huge. If there was a pill that could offer that kind of reduction in risk, it would be a super seller, and it would be malpractice not to prescribe it. So look at that, right? And then more than that, this is what I find fascinating. the nurses that passed away, the nuns that passed away, and they did autopsies, the ones who had no sign of the dementia, the ones that came from the more enthusiasm for life group, it turned out they had just as much plaque in their brains as the nuns that exhibited the symptoms of dementia or Alzheimer's. That's incredible, right? Look at the power of your mind to override physical playouts. So, so, so powerful. Okay, let's look at one more study. This is also an old study. It was done, as you can tell here, in 1979. So back in 1979, they took a group of men all in their 70s, and they took them to this converted monastery, converted to look as if it was 1959. They wanted to give the men the experience of like a time warp, like it was 1959, to kind of fool their minds and their bodies that it's 1959. So this wasn't about reminiscing about the past, like you and I might go, oh, remember when we did this in high school, or remember when that band was so big in college, or whatever. These people were immersed as if it was 1959. Perry Como was on the radio, Ed Sullivan was on the TV, all the books, the magazines, the newspapers on the table were all 1959. They had no mirrors, they had no modern day clothing. Any pictures they had in their wallets were all from 1959. So it really was an illusion of living as if it was 22 years earlier. No one, and because these people were supposedly in their 50s instead of their 70s, the staff at the monastery did not treat them like, quote, older people. No one said, oh, here, sir, let me help carry your bag, or do you need assistance getting up the stairs, or any of some of the well-meaning solicitous behavior that isn't always necessary, but carries a message. So nobody did that because these guys were in their 50s. And here's what happened. 1 week later, this group showed improvements in every one of these. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see here all these different measurements of aging. They all showed improvement from 1 week, and 63% of them had a better intelligence score than they had just a week or two prior. This is powerful stuff, people. And then, just to finish it off from the visual side of things, they had 4 volunteers who knew nothing about the experiment just look at pictures of these men from shortly before they went on the week and then after the week. And they found that typically their after the week pictures were judged to be an average of 2 years younger than their pictures looked a week ago. So this is powerful stuff, and I want you to get this. We don't want to do this and ignore our diet and our lifestyle and all those things, but we don't want to ignore this either. So what are your thoughts, concerns, perceptions, and expectations about your aging journey? Can you challenge the ageism that I mentioned earlier is so woven into the fabric of our culture, hitting us constantly in those subtle and not so subtle ways? Can you upgrade your own narrative? You're not going to change the culture, not all by yourself, not right this minute. But can you upgrade your own narrative in a way that's grounded in truth while minimizing the impact of a society that generally worships youth and fears aging? Will you upgrade your diet, your lifestyle to support your best, most resilient and joyous self, knowing that you are rich with experiences that younger people or your younger self did not have? You have hard-earned wisdom. You have amazing life experience. Are you going to harness all of that to create the most meaningful next phase in your life? If your answer is yes, and I certainly hope it is, then keep listening to and watching these videos, because I'm going to continue to offer bite-sized doable tips to support wholehearted aging, covering all the domains of life. So I hope you're with me. Please make a comment. Tell me if you found this interesting, helpful, or surprising. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say goodbye for now.